Welcome, dear friends. You're watching our channel, and today we're going to break down the situation in Ukraine as of February 20th, 2026. A truly large number of significant events have taken place over the past 24 hours, so let's not waste any time and get straight to it. Strikes on energy infrastructure. Let's begin with the fact that today we are receiving reports of massive strikes against Ukrainian energy infrastructure. Specifically, there is information about an attack on transformer substation 154 in the area of the settlement of Snihurivka in the Kherson region. There is no video documentation of this strike at the moment, only confirmation that the attack took place. As for visual documentation, tonight footage was published from the Dnipropetrovsk region, from the area of the settlement of Vasilivka. These frames captured the aftermath of a strike that was presumably carried out against the settlement itself, possibly against warehouse facilities, or possibly against some element of energy infrastructure. In addition, during the course of today, a strike was carried out against the central part of Zaporizhzhia. In this case, the target was substation 150 in the area of Brigade Street, Coastal Highway. Corresponding video materials were published today by various sources from that area. The attack was carried out using two Shahed-type drones. Thus, we observe that the Russian side is methodically continuing to strike Ukrainian energy facilities, while simultaneously, apparently, preparing for another massive strike. A number of experts do not rule out that this strike may be delivered as early as the night of February 20th to 21st, 2026. Situation on the ground. Now let us turn to the ground situation. Today, the volume of incoming information is relatively limited, and if we sum up everything published over the past 24 hours, the picture looks as follows. Positional fighting is being recorded, and the front line has not changed on any of the sectors. There may be some more significant adjustment in the Lyman area, but on all other fronts, the situation remains stable. Nevertheless, let us examine each sector in detail. Zaporizhzhia direction. In this sector, each passing day brings more and more confirmation and more intelligence data indicating that the Russian side has managed to fully stabilize the front line along the railway corridor from Zaliznikne to Ternovate. According to available information, Russian forces are currently completing a regrouping ahead of a possible offensive further to the west toward three settlements: Rozdvianka, Vozdvizhenka, and Verkhnya Tersa. It is difficult to speak about specific timelines for the start of this operation. At the same time, taking into account information about a planned American operation against Iran, information to which we will return shortly, there is a very high probability that the active phase of the offensive in this sector will begin either simultaneously with American actions in the Middle East or shortly thereafter. Northern direction. No map changes have been recorded here either. Several video materials have been published from the area of the settlement of Zlahoda, which indirectly confirm the current front line. These frames show Ukrainian drones striking Russian positions on the territory of this settlement. The footage confirms, at minimum, where the front line runs and indicates that Ukrainian forces have not yet advanced beyond Privilia. Dobropilya Kostiantinivka direction. No changes here. Russian units have begun active assault operations against a strongpoint located south of the settlement of Dova Balka. Objective control footage from this sector has been published showing Russian FPV drone operators methodically advancing along the perimeter of this strongpoint, striking positions of the Ukrainian armed forces. Once the position has been sufficiently suppressed using drones, a ground operation will follow. Quite possibly, it has already begun. And of course, after the fall of this major nodal strongpoint south of Dova Balka, the way will open for an active, and one might say, final, assault phase directly toward the settlement itself. In other words, judging by available objective control materials, the assault operations in this sector are still at an early stage. Sloviansk direction. The main combat events and most significant news today are coming to us from the northern part of the Donetsk region. Ukrainian forces are undertaking local counter-offensive actions in the area of the settlements of Sviatohirsk, Sosnovo, Oleksandrivka, and Yarova. There are reports of meeting engagements in the Sviatohirsk area. However, as a result of these battles, Ukrainian forces were compelled to withdraw from the central part of the settlement. Today, pro-Russian sources report that the center of Sviatohirsk has passed into a gray zone. Somewhat to the north, Ukrainian forces carried out a series of counterstrikes in the Sosnov area, but Russian sources claim that units of the Russian armed forces on this axis managed to retain control of the railway. Separate pro-Russian sources also report that Russian troops have significantly improved their positions in the Alexandrivka area and have symbolically reached the administrative border with Kharkiv Oblast. According to various pro-Russian assessments, the Russian army currently controls approximately 60% of this settlement, and combat operations in this direction appear to be approaching their conclusion. One more important detail regarding Sviatohirsk that we almost overlooked. A significant geolocation has emerged. Footage has been published showing Russian servicemen raising a flag in the eastern part of the city. On the basis of this video material, a corresponding map correction was made. Thus, today there is already sufficient grounds to consider that information about combat operations being conducted directly on the territory of Sviatohirsk is fully accurate. Kupiansk direction. A number of important developments have emerged here today. First, a short video has appeared showing Ukrainian FPV drone operators striking Russian equipment located in the central or northern part of Kucherivka, or on the border with Podoli. These frames are highly significant. On the basis of this footage, analysts are currently weighing options for map corrections. However, in the opinion of the majority of cartographic experts, the territory north of this sector, a small grey zone pocket, will soon be mapped as being under Russian control. This is indicated both by the content of the video itself and by the consolidated opinion of specialists. In the Kovsharivka area, Russian units have begun assault actions toward the next network of strongpoints located to the east of Novusinov. These positions are being subjected to intense artillery fire and FPV drone strikes. Recall that last week the main Russian effort was concentrated on strongpoints northeast of Novusinov and east of Kovsharivka, which at that time led to corresponding map corrections. Today, the center of events has shifted to the next major fortified node located somewhat northeast of Hlushkivka. There is a possibility that the map will be corrected in this sector in the near future as well, and the small pocket between Hlushkivka and Pischene will, in all likelihood, be eliminated. The political arena. Now let's look at what is happening on the political front. Let us begin with the fact that in recent days, the President of the United States signed an executive order extending anti-Russian sanctions for another year. This is an extremely important piece of news, and its chronological context deserves special attention. It emerged precisely at the moment when the Geneva negotiations ended in complete failure. That is the first point. And the second, information about the extension of sanctions emerged at the very same time that the United States has significantly reinforced its military presence around Iran. The majority of experts are already saying that a strike against Iran has become virtually inevitable, and the impression is forming that the masks have finally come off. It appears that the Americans were trying to use the sanctions mechanism as a leverage instrument in negotiations. Quite possibly, Russia was given certain assurances during the Geneva consultations, up to and including complete or partial sanctions relief. However, after the talks reached a complete dead end, the Americans immediately and without hesitation extended restrictive measures against the Russian Federation. Today there is also a great deal of important news from Kyiv. Zelensky stated that Russia is seeking not elections in Ukraine as such. Its primary goal is to replace him, Zelensky, personally. He explains all the current discourse surrounding demands for new elections in the country by this very circumstance. Notably, a number of senior Ukrainian officials today reported that the Verkhovna Rada had been secretly developing a bill regulating the conduct of elections under wartime conditions. At the same time, information has been widely circulated in Western and Ukrainian media that following the failure of the Geneva negotiations, Zelensky instructed newly appointed Ukrainian Defense Minister Fedorov to develop a 3-year war continuation plan. Thus, if we put all the pieces of this puzzle together, the renewal of sanctions, insider reports about long-term military planning, the picture that emerges is deeply troubling and, frankly, bleak. The impression is growing ever stronger that Geneva was a point of no return. Something genuinely serious happened there. Possibly in the diplomatic and human dimension, between the delegations of the United States, Russia, and Ukraine, and we are now observing the consequences of that in the form of sustained sanctions and a war planned to continue for at least another 3 years. Trump, aliens, and Iran. We return to the United States, to a piece of news that can confidently be called the most important not only of the past 24 hours, but perhaps of the entire departing month. Today, President of the United States Donald Trump promised that the Pentagon will, in the near future, declassify information concerning extraterrestrial civilizations, aliens, UFOs, and so forth. Let me say immediately, the genuine importance of this news has absolutely nothing to do with aliens as such, nor with whether the Pentagon possesses real evidence of the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence. This is about something else entirely. We need to clearly and plainly understand. The subject of extraterrestrial civilizations is, in itself, an undeniably captivating and philosophically profound question. And if the Pentagon comes before the public with photographs, video recordings, satellite imagery, or audio materials that even indirectly point to the existence of extraterrestrial life, this will immediately produce the effect of an information tsunami. An enormous portion of humanity, journalists, analysts, researchers, bloggers, ordinary citizens interested in global politics, will instantly and completely switch their attention to this topic. For several months, they will devote all their leisure time and all their intellectual resources exclusively to these questions. OSINT communities will immediately spring up, and the analysis of coordinates, geolocations, imagery, and object recognition will begin. In other words, a kind of vacuum will form in the information space. For a prolonged period, the people who shape the news agenda will be consumed by the topic of extraterrestrial life. All the more so if the Pentagon presents genuinely compelling evidence. And this is precisely what the current administration of the White House is seeking to achieve. Because we can clearly see, the Americans are trying to distract all of humanity, to redirect its gaze in a completely different direction. If we analyze the totality of events currently unfolding across the globe, the conclusion is unambiguous. The primary purpose of these publications about extraterrestrial civilizations is to divert the eyes of the entire world away from Iran. From Iran specifically. Today, an exceptionally powerful American military grouping is concentrated around this country. 2 carrier strike groups are deployed here. A huge number of F-22, F-16, and F-35 fighters of the 4th and 5th generations are concentrated in the region, and a large number of cruisers capable of striking with Tomahawk cruise missiles are engaged. Virtually all American military bases in the Middle East are involved in the operation. Approximately 20 facilities in Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. Satellite imagery shared daily by Chinese companies and intelligence communities captures hundreds of aircraft, aerial refueling tankers, airborne early warning planes, and a massive amount of supporting equipment. Such a concentration of American military hardware in a single region is something we have not witnessed in a very long time. Moreover, the grouping concentrated near Iran today exceeds by 20 to 30% the one we could observe there in May and June of 2025, when the first strikes were carried out against Iranian nuclear infrastructure facilities. Thus, the alien news story serves one sole purpose: to create an information smokescreen before the start of an operation. And given that Trump has already publicly announced the impending Pentagon disclosure of extraterrestrial data, there is an extremely high probability that a military operation against Iran's nuclear facilities and ballistic missile program will begin in parallel with that information event. Russia and China's position. What are Russia and China doing in this situation? Joint exercises are being conducted, photographs are being published, purportedly showing Iranian special forces, apparently together with Russian units, conducting maneuvers off the coast of Iran, in the Persian Gulf and other areas. However, we clearly understand that all these exercises amount to nothing more than a media response, an attempt to demonstrate readiness. Confronting a grouping of this magnitude with nothing but demonstrative maneuvers will not produce any real effect. And of course, the key question is the state of Iran's air defense system. Is it ready for the events that may begin to unfold as early as this weekend? Today, Iran's air defense system is built entirely on technologies and armaments supplied by Russia and China, reconnaissance assets plus surface-to-air missile complexes. And here a fundamental question arises. Exactly how many air defense systems have been transferred to Iran? To answer it, we need to return to Russia itself and look at what is happening on its territory. And what is happening is this. For approximately 10 days running, the Ukrainian side has been launching hundreds of drones deep into Russian territory, systematically stretching Russian air defenses from northern and northeastern directions toward the southern and southeastern sectors. Ukrainian drones and the adaptation of Russian air defense. Today a map was published showing the approximate flight routes of Ukrainian drones. The Russian Ministry of Defense published several situation reports throughout the day on the results of countering these attacks. Yesterday, for example, in the period from 1600 to 2000, the Russian side managed to shoot down 34 drones. Over the subsequent 3 hours, another 48 aircraft, as of 2300 hours. After that, the main routes shifted in a northerly direction, and during the nighttime hours another 149 drones were intercepted. Thus, another 24 hours brought approximately 300 drones launched against various infrastructure facilities on the territory of the Russian Federation. Here we observe that the Russian side is making active efforts to adapt to Ukraine's new tactics. Since destroying cheap wooden drones with expensive surface-to-air missiles is economically extremely disadvantageous. During the night, several video materials were published demonstrating the operation of Russian air defense assets. Some of them apparently show a specialized anti-drone system designed specifically for engaging small aerial vehicles. The footage captures the interception of drones somewhere over the Black Sea. In addition, over the past 24 hours, video recordings featuring Russian Ka-52 helicopters have been circulated very widely. This represents a fundamentally new approach to drone countermeasures on Russia's part. The Ka-52 is being used in the role of a hunter, seeking out and destroying Ukrainian drones loitering over Russian territory. According to the authors of the publications and open-source information, on one of the recent days, yesterday or the day before, the Russian side, using one or several Ka-52s, managed to destroy at least 25 drones out of approximately 300 launched. All of this indicates that cheap drones will increasingly be intercepted by helicopters and other types of aviation, rather than by expensive surface-to-air missiles, which, in all likelihood, may very soon be needed somewhere else entirely, in the Middle East. That is all for today, dear friends. Thank you for being with us. Subscribe to the channel, give us your likes, and all the very best to you.